Wow. All that talk about 1054 got me back in the, had to dig back in the crates, man. I said, didn't we have something about the schism of 1054? This is part 3, man. This is one of those joints that I strongly suggest you dig on 1 and 2, because we're flowing through that. We're in part 3. I mean, belly flop, if you will. Hawa, peace and power to the tribe. We're just talking schisms. We're talking, paradigm shifts. They said Titus and Flavius and all that came in with this paradigm shift. We've been digging on the medieval empire, they say, of the Israelites. And we're saying, what about this paradigm shift? That the picture that emerges from this, as discovered by scientists, the scientist and his followers, is that practically all of your history, I'm specifically talking to the tribe, man, all of your history, which is attributed to dates earlier than 900. You see how we're being repetitive? Because that breaks your spell, because every day you're taught bullshit. So every day I'm going to repeat this shit. Every day I'm going to send the frequency out, man. I'm just going to think the thought. The thought will be the sound, and I pray you hear it, man. Because we're all hearing the same sound. We're all, marching to the same war drum, man. We're all going to hear that same horn blow, man. From cycle to cycle. So all of your story attributed to dates earlier than 900 AD consists of duplicates. Phantoms and duplicates. So what the wave is kind of bringing us to is that the originals cracked off between 900 and 1600. So when we talk invasion, I know how fucking crazy this shit sounds, because I have to repeat it to myself, like, what? That the invasions we learned about as part of their history, and them invading, and these Jews and the temple over there in 70 AD. All right, man. Repeatable and observable. We're going to get it like it's the first time, because this is really going to be beautiful. But right quick, man, let's get to the schism. The Sabbath in the Great Schism of AD 1055 by R.L. Odom, Washington, D.C. Early in Christian history, there developed a cleavage, a tie, a link between the church leaders in Rome and those in Constantinople, a breach. So when we talk cleavage, these were linked, and now there is a breach. Now there is a break. A breach which widened with the passing of the centuries until the last tie that bound them together in Christian fellowship snapped. So the last link snapped in the summer of AD 1054. One of the main issues involved in the controversy was the matter of fasting on the Sabbath, the seventh day of the week. Fasting on the Sabbath. In 1053, the disagreement on this topic became verbally violent. In that year, Metropolitan Archbishop Leo of Okrida, then the capital of Bulgaria, but now a city belonging to Albania, and Patriarch Michael Cerularius of Constantinople wrote an open letter to Bishop John on the church in Trani in Apulia in southern Italy. The church was on the side of the Greeks in the controversy. All right, so they're arguing about fasting on the Sabbath. And you just ignore it every week. The message written in Greek was addressed to Your Holiness, Bishop John. and through you to all the chief priests. Interesting, huh? Chief priest. And the priest of the Franks. And the monks. And the peoples, and to the most reverend Pope himself. It was a vigorous protest against the Roman practice of making the Sabbath a fast day, of using unleavened bread in the communion service, of requiring the clergy to practice celibacy, of using the blood of animals and the flesh of strangled or suffocated animals for food. All right, so this is all being brought up in 1054. Cardinal Humbert, Bishop of Candida Silva, got a copy of that letter and placed a Latin translation of it in the hands of Leo IX, Bishop of Rome. This is very interesting, man. There's another Pope Leo, that has a lot to do with the correspondence, to Columbus and, some other stuff like that, man, about the whole massacre going on here. I mean, he was breaking it down like it was the best thing that they ever did. You know what I mean? So this is the energy that they're coming from. Straight static. So about the same time, Nicetes Stethatos, whom the Latins called Pectoratus, a learned monk and presbyter of the monastery of Studium in Constantinople, wrote his Libius contra Latinos, a booklet against the Latins. Interesting, huh? In which he attacked those practices of the Roman Church. So this monk and presbyter, all right, we're going to get to these monks, man. We're going to get into these monks and these priests, these chief and priests. I mean, what are we really talking about in 1054, people? You don't think this got nothing to do with you? When you think about an invasion, you think about 70 AD, and you read about these timelines and the shifts and how they shifted 1800 years. I mean, they will do that, yes. They will push your invasion 1300, 1400 years back just so that you're reading about it. You're thinking this is BC and 70 AD. And man, this is all synonymous because the originals of which are found in the time frame 900 to 1600. When did your ass get invaded, so-called Negro? Copper color race is found here, right? Original people, right? You're the originals, right? Not the duplicate, right? You're the original, right? Not the duplicate. So they're giving you a duplicate, a phantom timeline. They're pushing it back when your real story is where all the story that you're hearing attributed to dates earlier than 900 consist of duplicates, and your real story, the originals, of which are found in the time frame 900 to 1600. So we're just talking 1054. What's going on? What's going on with you? So he accused this church of having violated. So this libellus contra Latinos, of which he attacked those principles. This monk is attacking the practices of the Roman Church. He accused this church of having violated the injunction of the so-called apostolic constitutions against fasting on the Sabbath, and of having contravened the canons, contravened the canons of various church councils which had forbidden this practice. Moreover, he declared that the Roman clergy had no authority from either the scriptures or apostolic tradition. All right, so when they're talking apostolic tradition, they're just talking about your practices, your original practices, your Hebrew practices, your Ibri practices. When we're talking apostolic tradition, we're talking your original, not the duplicate. for making the Sabbath a fast day. That's very interesting. His treaties, circulated far and wide, had the approval of the Patriarch of Constantinople. Remember, Constantinople is Mazaka, is Moses. Mosak, the founder. We'll get back that because this is going to play again. So we got Mosak, the founder. Then you got the Mexica people connected to South America and Mexico. All connected. So this is Constantinople. The Patriarch is agreeing. He had approval this month from the Patriarch, the priest of Mazaka, or Constantinople later called. Then they called it Khazar, all that. But first it was Mosak, Mazaka. That's the original name of that Turkey Byzantine area. And that's why the Byzantine Empire was taken out in 1453. That's in between the 900 and the 1600. So the Byzantine Empire is playing more and more. More and more. The Patriarch of Constantinople, or Mazaka. In the meantime, the Patriarch of Constantinople closed all churches of that city which practiced any of the alleged errors of the Latins. So you're getting this schism, right? You know, we got to do it like it's the first time because we've been going so fast sometimes. You got to do it. We're just talking Philo, man. Love to the fan, man. Irvin Reed. We're just talking Philo, man. We're just talking the founder of the Cappadocians, Constantinople, Cappadocia. In the early 15th century, a Cappadocian scholar wrote an extensive, we're reading out of a book called Becoming Christian, The Conversion of Roman Cappadocia by Raymond von Damme. We're talking Moses and Mazaka and Mosak again. Repeatable and observable science and substantiating documentation. In the early 5th century, a Cappadocian scholar wrote an extensive ecclesiastical history that surveyed the developments of the previous century. In his homeland, Philostrosius had grown up in the shadows of the great Cappadocian fathers. Despite their prominence, Philostrosius did not embrace their version of orthodox theology. Instead, he and his family accepted the doctrine of Eunomius, another Cappadocian theologian whom Basil and Gregory of Nyssa would personally discredit and vilify, nor did Philostrosius remain in Cappadocia since eventually he moved to Constantinople. So he's bringing a new twist, right? He didn't want to accept the doctrines of the fathers, right? The Cappadocian fathers. He didn't want to get the OG. He didn't want to get the original. This is very dope, man, because we connecting it, man, in real time. So we're talking the original. The Patriarch of Constantinople. We're talking what they're calling apostolic tradition. Moreover, he declared that the Roman clergy had no authority from either scriptures or apostolic tradition for making the Sabbath a fast day. His treaty, circulated far and wide, had the approval of the Patriarch of Constantinople. In the meantime, the Patriarch, we're going to get about this Patriarch of Constantinople, closed all these hijacked churches of that city, which practiced any of the alleged errors, any of the crossover, right? Surfing away. So now you got the Philostrosius that's lining up with the crossover. Why? Because he did not embrace their version of the orthodox theology, the original. Instead, he and his family accepted the doctrines, the remix of Eunomius, another Cappadocian theologian whom Basil and Gregory of Nyssa would personally discredit and vilify, nor did Philostrosius remain in Cappadocia since eventually he moved to Constantinople. In his early ecclesiastical history, Philostrosius was hence both ecumenical, Ecumenical. Let's get that, man. I want to get all this. Ecumenical. I think that's how they got it. Definition. Let's get it. Let's just surf the wave with this. Representing a number of different Christian churches. Non-denominational. Okay. So they're kind of all over the place. To end his ecclesiastical history, Philostratus was hence both non-denominational and local. He was kind of all over the place. He included many tidbits of odd information about biblical events and the Roman Empire, and he was interested in legends about Cappadocia. When he mentioned Mazaka, the original name for the city that eventually came Caesarea, Mazaka is the original name. We're tying in Moshe, Moses, Mosak, who they just swept under the rug and threw away your foundational legend, so you're not connecting the Byzantine, your empires here and there. When he mentioned Mazaka, the original name for the city that eventually came Caesarea. Now you got the Khazars and the Khazar salads, right? Caesar salad is a Khazar salad. He noted that this name was derived from Mosak, the founder of the Cappadocians. Mosak's name suggests some sort of Semitic derivation. He's a Shemite, huh? This Mosak, they just gave you that. If you thought Kingdrop was on that play, they just gave you Moses. So Mosak's name suggests some sort of Semitic derivation, and his reputation as the founder of the Cappadocians seems to hint at a foundation legend for the region that was older than the adoption of Greek myths. Are you getting it? Let's make sure, man. Make sure. I gotta keep readjusting this thing. Hope you're getting it now. So look, man. This ain't play. I mean, this is a beautiful, you know what I'm saying, beautiful little tango we got. So when he mentioned Mazaka, the original name for the city that eventually came Caesarea, Mazaka, the original name before it became Caesarea, he noted that this name was derived from Mosak, Moses, the founder of the Cappadocians. Mosak's name suggests some sort of Semitic derivation, and his reputation as the founder of the Cappadocians seems to hint at a foundation legend, Negro, for the region that was older than the adoption of Greek myths, older than the hijack. In the early Roman Empire, people outside Cappadocia had heard of Mosak too. The Jewish historian Josephus, damn, this dude is everywhere. You don't think he remixed you? He went to the other side, right? You want to take his word for it? Or did he put you to sleep? Did they use him to put you to sleep? It don't matter if that was his intention or, initial intention. He was about self-survival. He was about, saving his people, his family, not you. The Jewish historian Josephus even tried to fit him into biblical genealogies by equating him with Menasseh, one of the grandsons of Noah. Y'all surfing away? So when we got the Josephus, remember how we pulled that up? Matter of fact, it's in the library, right? Let's get it. The Book of Josephus, man. I hope y'all surfing the wave, enjoying the library. We're building it brick by brick for you. Just something that we know, what I'm saying? No one, I never like to read, but, if I can make it any easier to kind of get to some of the water, we're going to keep doing that, keep working to make it easier, man. But at least we, working on having a private study, man, that we can dig on from plane to plane, you know what I'm saying? All right, man, let's get that Josephus. Every time I scroll through this thing, I already know. All right, Antiquities of the Jews, Flavius Josephus. Flavius Josephus, huh? Okay. I don't think that's what that cat looked like. What about you? What about you? Man, let's go book 1. And let's go chapter 6 here. Every nation was denominated from their first inhabitants. Now, we got this before, so this is beautiful. So look, man, what that cat just say? The Jewish historian Josephus even tried to fit him into biblical genealogies by equating him with Meshech, one of Noah's grandsons. That's when we was reading Josephus, and he just squeezed him in. Then he dropped you a little gem. He dropped you some drop and got out of it. He just kind of put him in there, and he didn't really fit. And that's what, when we went through this damn near a year ago, we dropped this, you know what I'm saying, where it just didn't fit. But I'm glad it's kind of being called back up. So now we're in it, man. So now they were the grandchildren of Noah, in honor of whose names were imposed on the nations by those that first seized upon them. Then he goes through Japheth, the son of Noah. He starts going through all the genealogy that, a lot of stuff that you'll get in in Genesis. But then he says, now as to Javan and Madai, the sons of Japheth, from Madai came the Madians, who are also called the Medes. The Medians are the Medes by the Greeks. But from Javan, Ionia, and all the Grecians are derived. Okay, I get it. From Javan, the Grecians derived. Thobal founded the Thobalites. I get that, okay. Who are called Iberis. So you got the Iberians, so they're Thobal, okay. And the Mosakini were founded by Mosak. Mosakini, that's not an everyday name, right? Was founded by Mosak. Now they are the Cappadocians. So Josephus dropped. Mosak founded the Cappadocians, just like we're getting. Now, here's the gem. He's going to do this and bounce. Watch this, man. Watch this, man. Watch the left, man. There is also a mark of their ancient denomination still to be shown. In the future, it would be prophetic. It hasn't been shown yet, but in the future, it's still to be shown. There's also a mark. So we're talking about Mosakini were founded by Mosak, Moses. Now they are the Cappadocians. There is also a mark, a sign, a tau, a cross, a mark, a sign, a tau, a cross, a mark, a sign, a tau, a cross. There is also a cross or a mark of their ancient denomination still to be shown. For there is even now among them, we're still talking Mosak, man. Now you go read this whole thing. He doesn't go into any other lineage the way he's going into Mosak. He does not go into detail about any other lineage the way he's going into Mosak, dropping gems, man. And the Mosakini were founded by Mosak. Now they are the Cappadocians. There is also a mark of their ancient denomination. Ancient. These people are ancient. He didn't say they came from Javan. He didn't say they came from the Medes, Scythians, Gog or Magog. He just threw them in there and said, man, these people are a sign. There's a sign of their ancient denomination still to be shown. For there is even now among them a city called Mazaka, which may inform those that are able to understand. Anyone that's drinking pure water is going to get this, is what Josephus is saying. I don't know if we're getting it yet, but I know we're asking the right question. So There is also a mark of their ancient denomination still to be shown, for there is even now among them a city called Mazaka, which may inform those that are able to understand or overstand that so was the entire nation once called. The entire nation was once called Mazaka or Mosak or Meshi or Mexico. You don't think this got anything to do with Mexico and Moses and the Mexica people and the Mexica language in Peru and Mexico and Peru and Jerusalem, which is Jerusalem? You don't think there is even now among them a city called Mazaka, which may now inform those who are able to understand that so was the entire nation once called. Then he goes into theorists also, Tyrus also called those who he ruled over Thracians, but the Greek changed his name to Thracians. Come on, man. He just switched the subject. So he dropped you a gem. He said there is also a mark of their ancient denomination still to be shown, for there is even among them now a city called Mazaka, which may inform you, drop nation, that are able to comprehend with wisdom that so was the entire nation once called. Which nation? I mean, if we're just talking Mosak, the founder, and there's a lot more, man, to go into Mosak. But if we're just talking Mosak, the founder, and we're talking priests, kings, and Prester John, but we're just talking Mosak, the founder. Now, they tried to hide him in the lineage of Japheth, but of course, we know that's hijacked, because he just threw him in there. He didn't say he was from Japheth. He said, yeah, there's Mosak, and there's a mark of their ancient origin, man. So you got Meshech, which we're talking. That's what Josephus is calling them. Mazaka, Mosak, Meshech. Now look at this. Much of modern Russia or Rus. Remember Clan Ross and the Rus? Much of modern Russia, parts of modern Georgia. Remember the Babylonian and Georgia exilarch? Exilarch means that they're the leaders during this exile. And the Caucasus region, the Caucasus. So, you only equate, white people are Caucasians. They come from the Caucasus. They're jacking all this stuff, man. They're not Caucasians. They are not from the Caucasus. All this is hogwash, man. They can't honestly claim any land. And every time you give them land, you're fucking up. Every time you give them one of these titles in any of your scripture, you're fucking up. Because they don't even fit into your book, man. They're squeezing themselves. They're happy when you call them Esau. They're not Esau. There's something else. There's something else afoot here. Caucasus region, Huns, ancient Mazaka. See, this whole Huns thing and Mongols is all mixed up in you. And you know that when you dig on the medieval empire of the Israelites. All the Mongol shit was code word for Israelites. They were just changing the story up, putting different titles on this stuff. So when you talk Mosak, he says, much of modern Russia, parts of modern Georgia, all that, Mazaka, Mosak, Moskini, Moscow, and Muscovy, and Cappadocia. Moscow is Moses, is Mazaka, is Mosak, is Meshech. There's a mark, there's a sign, right? For those that are able to comprehend. You got Muscovy. All right, you got Moscow, reflects the old name, possibly migration as far as South American. So they went from Russia to South American in your face. Moscow reflects the old name, possibly migration as far as South America. You don't think this got nothing to do with you here? Copper color races, possibly the Moshe and cultures in South America, and the now dead Mexica languages in Peru. Mexica just went extinct about 100 years ago, Negro. 100 years, man. Recently, 100 years, man. Mexica was still being spoken up until 100 years. They finally got rid of that. Mexica languages, man. We got to get on the Mexica language. Much of northern Russia, Rus, Moscow, and the region, Muscovy. Now, how does this Muscovy start playing with these tribes in Mexico and so-called North America? We're just talking Mosak and Moshe. Moshe, M-O-C-H-E. Meshech is Moshe, is Mazaka, and that's what they're talking about with the Cappadocian drop. Mosak, the founder. Moses, the founder of the Cappadocians. Mosak's name suggests some sort of Semitic derivation, Semitic Shem, in America, South America, right? And his reputation as far as the founder of the Cappadocians seems to hint at a foundation legend, Negro, for the region that was older than the adoption of Greek hijack. In the early Roman Empire, outside Cappadocia, had heard of Mosak too. The Jewish historian Josephus even tried to fit him into biblical genealogies, right? We just got it. For those that are able to understand, by equating him with Meshech, one of the grandsons of Noah. Although Mosak is an intriguing primal ancestor. What? Man, we're talking about your real Mashiach. And we have to dig on it through the lens and the parallel of this Caesar's Messiah. We're not just banging on shit to bang on it. We're getting the foundation legend. Although Mosak is an intriguing primal ancestor, first original, he unfortunately remains completely obscure. What? How can you be completely obscure when you're Moses? Because this is what they did. They completely did a hijack 101. Now you call that Khazaria, and it's just some Turkey and some hijack place called Turkey. Before that, it was Mosak, and you had the Byzantine. You have empires being hidden, man, before you just throw shit away as, man, that just must be Turkey. Oh, shit, those just must be Mongols. Oh, shit, that just must be whatever, man. This is what they did to you. All of what they're calling abominations to them is you. Although Mosak is an intriguing primal ancestor, he unfortunately remains completely obscure. Philostrosius, in fact, knew so little about the legend that he could not match up the consonants and vowels in order to make sense of the postulated link between the city's name Mazaka and Mosak's name. He couldn't even get it. So he shrugged and invented a makeshift phonetic transfer. He created a hijack this philo. After the passage of time, this is this quote. After the passage of time, the city was called Mazaka through a swerving. So it went from Mosak to Mazaka through a swerving. So Mazaka, hijack too. Mosak, now you're getting the frequency. In the latter Roman Empire, all that survived of whatever legends there may have been about Mosak were his name. Listen, man. Cut the shit and listen, man. You're not going to get this repeated that many damn times. You have to cut the shit and listen and start digging on it if it's important to you. Only if it's important to you. Because you got to catch the wave. Because if you keep bullshitting, you will get left on. You will get left in hijack city. You got to be more important than that. Your family got to be more important than that. Life, everlasting life that you are covenanted with. You belong to it. You gotta, you know what I'm saying? You got a mansion in the everlasting, but you keep focusing on what's in front of you. Your happiness comes from what's in front of you, not the treasure that you're building everlasting, because you can't be destroyed. So you have to invest in your future, in your energy, because it's beyond this what you call a lifetime. It's beyond this, man. It's beyond. You're bigger than this shit. You got to invest in it. Open your heart. After, man. Drop gonna go crazy. Look, man, in the latter empire, Roman Empire, all that survived of whatever legends there may have been about Mosok were his name. So you know the name Moses, that survived, right? His reputation survives. Well, there's movies about him. But the city and his enigmatic connection with the name of the city. So they were confused about Moses' connection, just like you are confused about Moses' connection with the Byzantine, with Turkey. What does Moses got to do with Turkey? With Mosok, which they called Mazaka, then Khazaria, then Cappadocia. The myth of Mosok, Moses the founder, Mosok the founder, Moses the founder. Are you digging on it? The myth, no, the reality of Moses, the founder, Mosok, the founder, was a lost memory. Hijack 101 happened. And it became a lost memory, a fragment of an abandoned past, a casualty of the adoption of Greek mythology. Hijack 101. The imposition of Roman rule, and the expansion of Christianity. All of this took away the foundational legend of the so-called Negro, the real Israelite, found in America. The copper-colored race is found here, and no one wants to own up to it because it's too damn heavy for you. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the drop. You just came over here to be entertained. You can't handle the drop, man. It's too heavy. It's too much responsibility when you know the drop. This ain't no play. You just read Mazaka's connection with the Mexica and the languages and the connection to the migration of South America from South America. Fool, this is the old world here, and they knew it. Prester John had the fountain of youth here, man. If they got the fountain of youth here, and if Columbus is saying that the Orinoco River is flowing out of the terrestrial paradise, which we know connects to Mount Roraima or tree Roraima, which is the source of the Amazon and the Orinoco flow. The mount or tree Roraima is the source of the flow from the terrestrial paradise here. So it's not a myth. It's the reality of Mosok, Moses the founder. And it became a lost memory just like you, a fragment of the abandoned past just like you, a casualty of the adoption of the Greek mythology. You're a casualty, Negro. I think this is play. You're a casualty. You're a casualty of war. You've been invaded. You're a prisoner of war until you free yourself. So you're a casualty of the adoption of this Greek hijack, the imposition of Roman rule, and you're a casualty of the expansion of Christianity because they said convert or die. Indian. In a society that defined itself in terms of Greekness, hijackness, whiteness, so-called, Romanness, or Christianity, all the same. Mosok the founder had become meaningless. Damn. So in this society, because you know they're talking about you, since you know your chronology, they're not talking about 70 AD and BC's fool. They're talking about your invasion here. We're talking about Quetzalcoatl and Hawa Mach. We're talking about your invasion here, and they took your original, and what did they do? What did they do? Mosok the founder has become meaningless, man. So what did they do? You tell me, man. Let's get it like it's the first time. Oh, man, we still partying, man. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta dig on it. Have a powwow in this bitch. Yeah. I don't know where it is, man. Somebody's partying one of these times. Dig on it, man. man. We're just dealing on war songs, man, and war drums, man. We'll be right back, man. We'll be back, man. Where we at? We'll be back, man. We'll holla. Let's get on this parallel timelines. Remember, we're just talking chronology, and we'll get right back in that, you know what I'm saying, Christ Messiah documentary. Do some, you know, probably double or triple dismounts, man. Drop Nation is coming.
And to make comparisons, we have an obvious circular argument here. What you need to always bear in mind is how things get dated, particularly in ancient times. I mean, in modern times, we know to some extent how things get dated. But imagine you're a historian, okay, from say 300 AD or 500 AD, possibly even 1200 AD or later. First of all, it's not entirely clear that your intention in writing history is the same as the intention of a modern historian, namely to give a faithful chronicle of events. We cannot take this for granted at all. As a matter of fact, it's a fair assumption that many ancient writings had a sort of moralistic purpose. They were much more in keeping with, like Roman histories was showing, the grandeur of certain figures, giving uplifting accounts and so forth. This is very, very important because the results that we're talking about are, in some cases, are going to look and seem so preposterous to you that you will be very tempted to just turn your mind off or turn your back to the whole thing. And
it's going to seem so preposterous to you, Negro, that you're going to, just want to turn your back to it. Have that cognitive dissonance, man. Love to medicine, man. Get in that classroom, man, because this is a real thing. You just want to hang on to the hijack. You just want to ignore it and turn your back.
And what Ellen and I are above all trying to do is not make you throw out the data. You may discard Flamenco's interpretation of the data. You may discard the interpretations that we have of the data.
You gotta get the babies out the data.
But you shouldn't throw out the data. In my opinion, the data is incontrovertible. You see on the right-hand side, this is the Roman Empire from 82 BC to the 3rd century AD. On the left-hand side, we have the Roman Empire from the 3rd century through the 6th century AD. Okay, we are writing the
Phantoms and duplicates. These two timelines, I believe, are about 500-600 years apart. The same Roman Empire, one in the BC, one in the AD. And you're going to see how the chain of events are absolutely the same. So they're duplicating their history, creating falsified events, a false empire, writing themselves into history as if they've been here. Now these motherfuckers is going to have to just, come out the woodwork and just say, yeah, man, we kind of came from nowhere, created a bunch of history on you and put a spell on you. And the whole time, you've been home and pretty much in your empire. And we've hijacked it all in the last few hundred years. You got to hear this again, man. Let's do the math.
The right-hand side, this is the Roman Empire from 82 BC to the 3rd century AD.
82 BC to the 3rd century AD. Right? Let's get it right.
Roman Empire from 82 BC to the 3rd century AD.
82 BC to the 3rd century AD. So that's about 200 AD. So this is, 82 BC to about 200 AD.
On the left-hand side, we have the Roman Empire from the 3rd century through the 6th century AD. Okay, we are
3rd century through the 6th century. So, now you got to the 500s. So they're about, a gap at least, about a few hundred years at least, man. And you see it all lining up. Each dot is representing an event that is, basically parallel. We're talking about parallel timelines in history.
Writing the Roman emperors in the order in which they occur according to the chronicles, according to the histories, even according to modern history. To read the diagram, the spaces, say, from here to here, represent the length of reign of that emperor. So, in other words, here's 41 years, a long reign. This diagram is supposed to show a kind of symmetry between a period of time in which you have a sequence of Roman rulers, and then a period of time more than 300 years later, in which you have another sequence of Roman emperors.
More than 300 years later, so the width of these dots represents the, length of rulership of that particular, or the reign of that particular emperor or king or chief or whatever. So you see, these are all, each dot represents an emperor, a king, all right? One of these Roman emperors, one of these kings, over 300 years apart. You have it all dotting out, and they're reigning at the exact same lengths of time. Short periods of reign, longer periods of reign, longer periods of reign, shorter, longer, longer. Is it coincidence, or did they hijack your timeline and create their own history and create phantoms and duplicates and parallels?
Now, let's start here with Augustus. Okay, he reigns for 41 years, and Constantine the Great Augustus reigns for 31 years. And you say, well, big deal. I agree. That's 10 years difference. But follow what happens after here. You have Tiberius compared to Constantius II, 23 and 24. When we come to Caligula, it's 4 years and 2 years. Caligula is paired to Julian the Apostate. Then we have Claudius, 13 years, and Valentinian, 11 years.
So when you hear them being compared, what he's really saying and what they're going to say is that they're the same person. Hear it again. Every emperor he's comparing to the other one, he's saying they're the same person. You're just looking at duplicates. And them themselves are duplicates, synthetic duplicates of something that happened more recent. Let's get it.
Is paired to Julian the Apostate. Then we have Claudius, 13 years, and Valentinian, 11 years, and so forth. Now, so you understand the principle behind the figure. It is meant to show the symmetry between lengths of reign of emperors who are understood to have reigned more than 300 years apart. Toward the end of this period in Roman history, we have a sequence of 4 emperors who all reigned for less than 1 year. Okay, they were died or they got off by the legions or whatever it was. And that's paired by a sequence of rulers who all reigned less than 1 year on the other side. Okay, very, very conspicuous. Now, the other thing that's interesting is this period sort of in Roman history ends with an invasion by the Goths, where you have Caracalla. Oddly enough, exactly on the other side, you have a second, let's put it this way, quote unquote, second invasion of the Goths. Okay, on the left we have the Roman Empire from the 1st century BC to the 3rd century AD. Then we have the Holy Roman Empire from the 10th century to the 13th century. In other words, on the left here we have largely the same people who are that we had on the right-hand side in the previous one, but now they're being compared to rulers of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, basically about 1,050 years later.
1,050 years later. So when I say, and when you read in the medieval empire, the Israelites, that year 1 is 1054 AD, because the astronomical signs and all that actually add up to that. That's just more evidence that year 1 is actually 1054 when they talk about the birth of this Messiah and who was actually born here in 1054, which Mashiach, we're talking Joshua. Now you're looking at 2 Roman empires again, 1,050 years apart, just like the 1,054 years that they added, right? And look at the duplicate of the reigning of these emperors. They are duplicates and phantoms 1,050 years apart. Is it play?
And you see that we have another symmetry. Okay, this is how it's reported. But remember, we have to bracket almost everything of this kind over here, because we don't know what the veracity of the chronicles is, what the intention of the chronicles was, or even what the people really understood by it.
I don't think anybody is in any position, really, to make a hypothesis. You get a million ideas occurring to you when you really look into this. Many people that I talk to, they want to get a hypothesis, they want to go off and run with it, to the exclusion of everything else before they understand anything about really what's going on. And I think that people have no business making hypotheses about...
What? Oh, we got all the business in the world later to make an hypothesis because it happened to us. We are being phantomed and duplicated. Oh, damn well... Oh, hell yeah, we're going to come up with a theory. Let's go.
Until they really understand the extent and the depth and the weight of what he has done. Any really nailed down hypothesis. Obviously, lots of crazy ideas are going to occur to you, but, they occur to me all
we got some crazy ideas, lady.
the time, and I try to follow them out as much as I can, but, we are not making hypotheses here, because really we're not in a position to.
Remember the little pattern up here? Okay, where we have a little block of history here, and then we shift it back and so forth. Fomenko's opinion is the only legitimate history. Now, this doesn't mean that nothing happened before this. The only history that our documents address themselves to is from the period of 300 AD up till modern times. Everything else is a projection of that material, that historical material, back in time, due to the errors that scholars made in trying to synchronize relative blocks of history. Remember, there are three shifts.
You think they were errors, or do you think it was a plan? There are three shifts, three paradigm shifts. Remember, Titus and Flavius came with a paradigm shift. They shifted time. We're talking Scaliger and Pythagoras, or, something like that. Scaliger, whatever the chronology is, they're shifting you. We're being shifted. We're being crossed over. We're being hijacked. It comes with a shift. Shifty people do shifty things. Now listen to these three shifts. This ain't no play. Listen to the three shifts.
One is 333 years, one is 1,053 years, and the other one is 1,778 years. He hasn't...
Hear him again. This actually happened.
One's 333 years, one is 1,053 years, and the other one is 1,778.
333 years, 1,053 years, and 1,778, 1,800 years, basically. So you were shifted. Your same King David, or the same, chiefs, the same invasion. They switched the names. They put it in another area. They wrote about it and put it in their books, and they're packaging this bullshit to you with a shift, with the twist. With the evil twist. That's what Ra is, twisted. That's what this sun celestial hijack is, twisted. So they twisted you 333 years. They twisted you again 1,053 years. And they twisted you again 1,778 years.
He has an account of each one of these and how these could have happened historically to produce those shifts. But his is what we might call one radical interpretation. Now, before you say this guy's out of his mind, what Fomenko does, given one pair of duplicates, what Fomenko does is says, well, can we establish astronomically which one is valid? So, take, for example, Thucydides' Peloponnesian Wars. There are three eclipses mentioned in the Peloponnesian Wars, and they're described with great fullness. There's a lunar eclipse, an annular solar eclipse, and another lunar eclipse. You can infer what the path of totality was, and the whole deal from these descriptions. The creators of modern chronology, namely Scaliger and Petavius, trying to astronomically solve the problem of those eclipses, were not able to do it without leaving out some of the data provided by Thucydides, who, by the way, says he was a witness of this. So what Fomenko did, he said, let's make no presuppositions about this. Where are the exact astronomical solutions for this triad of eclipses? And there turns out to be one in the 11th century AD and one in the 12th century AD.
11th century and 12th century, people.
No others. So what Fomenko does
no others.
Regularly is when he will appeal to astronomical arguments to try to determine which is the principal one, and his conclusion, and however crazy it may sound, is extraordinarily well argued, is that the only legitimate history is the modern history from about 300 on, and most of that, by the way, is from 900 on.
So you got 300 on, but most of it's from 900 on. The originals are mostly coming out of the time frame between 900 and 1600. All right, this is a separate doc that's talking about this Anatoly Fomenko research, and this is the minority report, man. All right, this is the part that they don't want. This is being swept under. Remember, Mossack is gone, right? No one's checking on Mossack no more, man. No one cares about Mossack. Mossack, the founder, has become meaningless. He's been lost in the hijack, lost in the parallels of history, of timeline.
300 on, like statuary documents and things like that. Yeah.
He thinks most of the things that we think of as historical events really did happen, but the question is when and where, and maybe, of course, how many times. And he thinks, well, it didn't happen 10 times, it only happened once, and most of that stuff happened after 900.
Yeah, by the way, and something...
Most of it happened after the 900s, man, so we get it like it's the first time around here. We're just talking about the schism, alright? We're just talking about the schism. The Patriarch of Constantinople, now we got the Mossack connection, closed all churches of that city which practiced any of the hijack. Leo IX wrote a long letter of 41 chapters in the latter part of 1053, right when this Mashiach or this sign was born. The Patriarch Michael Cerularius and Archbishop Leo in Achrida, in which he argued that he was the successor of the Apostle Peter, that he was invested with supreme authority. Supreme authority, Pope Leo said. He has the authority of the Creator over the universal church, not the Israelites anymore. It's everybody. That his word was law. So Leo IX is saying he has supreme authority. His word is law for the faithful to obey. He did not present any other defense for his acts. Cardinal Humbert, a favorite of the Roman bishop, wrote a responsio reply to the attack by Nicetas. All right, so we're going to dig on some more of that. I want to get back into this Caesar's Messiah. All right, we're on minute 42. Let's just pick it up, man. Love y'all, man. We're just connecting it. We're surfing the wave because of you. You give us the energy, man, to see, to dodge, to hijack, and to know that it's real, and we are real, and we exist because he exists. Wow.
And the penny dropped that Jesus, as a human being, never existed.
In all of this, we're dealing with literature. We're not dealing with history. So the answer is no, there is no history to this character of Jesus. It's entirely a literary creation.
What the Romans did was they saw the Jews' reliance and belief in prophecy. So they said, okay, they want a prophet, let's give them one.
It seems that in the construction of the literary character Jesus Christ, the Roman authors borrowed religious concepts not only from Judaism, but also from other gods and religions that they knew. Some scholars have noticed the similarities between the story of Jesus and the ancient pagan mysteries.
In ancient mythology, we find this whole strain of thought called solar mythology. Many gods start taking on solar attributes because as agricultural communities become more important, the sun becomes the big focus for the most obvious reasons of planting and harvesting. The sun is then personified, so now we have a male sun god. It becomes a religion in many parts of the world.
Apollo is Abaddon when you read in their hijack revelations, hijacking the book of Daniel. Apollo is Apollyon, is Abaddon, is their Jesus, their Krishna, their Christ, their sun god. On Sunday you go, right, Nego?
Christianity usurped a tremendous amount of sun worship. Some of us are saying that this was a sun god turned into a Jewish man. This December 25th birthday was in fact the winter solstice. This is really in fact the birth of the god of light. December 25th actually is the end of a 3-day period of when the sun stands still. The sun appears to be dying as the days become shorter, and the sun is reborn at that point.
Bang.
Across the ancient world, there was this form of experiential and philosophical spirituality in these mystery cults, or mystery schools. And at the center of these schools you would find a mythos, which was an initiatory myth, a symbolic myth, which would help people who were going through the initiatory process come to this spiritual awakening, this knowledge, this what they called gnosis. And what you see in these myths is the elements that will later become the Jesus story.
Let's ask the question, is Jesus developed from pre-existing literary characters? Jesus has certain episodes in this so-called life, and each one of them can be traced to a prior representation of that type.
If you look at the elements which we found in the pagan mystery school myths, you find the story of a dying and resurrecting Son of God, who's born of a virgin, has 12 disciples, turns water into wine at a wedding, he brings a new religion of love, is accused of heresy or of provocation by the authorities, is put to death, sometimes by crucifixion. And then if you want to commune with the God-man, you take bread and wine, and then you can come to eternal life. Well, all of this is, of course, Christianity.
Easter itself is a long pre-Christian celebration of the resurrection of spring from the death of winter.
This is an ancient shamanic rite you'll find all over the world, that you go through a ritual death.
Ritual death. My niggas, every time you do this Easter shit, you're doing rituals, man. You're putting yourselves to sleep, man. You're doing rituals to death. Halloween, death. Christmas, death. Oh, the death of the sun. Death, death, death. When you hear 4th of July, you hear all that pop, pop, bang, bang, chitty, chitty. Every single pop, pop you hear is you dying. Every single gunfire is them shooting you, and you're celebrating it with firecrackers looking like buffoons. Somebody's laughing at you, and I'm not the one doing it. I'm the one hurt to death watching you celebrate death. And the more we wake up, the more, you know what I'm saying, this stuff becomes foolishness to celebrate your own death. Somebody slap you in the back of the head, you gonna celebrate it? That's what you're doing.
Where you get reborn, but you're reborn as an awake being. So you've died just to your lower nature and woken up to your higher nature.
You can find them in the Old Testament, in the Jewish mythology as well. It isn't just pagan parallels. I mean, the New Testament, for example, the Ascension. We have an ascension with the Old Testament figure of Elijah, and it's a very dramatic ascension.
Elisha-Elijah cycle. These are two Jewish prophets, one followed on from the other, which have many of the story elements found in Jesus. For example, there is a multiplication of food miracle, there is a raising of the dead miracle, there is a water miracle, there is ultimately an ascension to heaven miracle. Is this fulfillment, or is this
phantoms and duplicates, phantoms and duplicates?
Simply copying of a useful theme.
Duplicates.
You can see where they just used Old Testament characters and scriptures as a blueprint to create this new one.
A lot of the ethics of Christianity actually...
It don't matter if you call them Yahweh Shai, Yeshua, whatever you want to call it, it's a duplicate. And you're using a duplicate story, a duplicate lens, a duplicate perspective, and the energy that created the duplicate to now push that duplicate on your people that are trying to get back to their originality. Copper color races found here. We're talking originality, the original thing.
Around before Christianity, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is in fact from the Old Testament. It's Jesus didn't make that up. Many of the other aspects of Christian ethics, many things which we might like to applaud as very good aspects of Christian ethics, can be found in the Stoic philosophy in Rome, which, by the way, was exactly the philosophical and ethical school promoted by the Flavians.
There's little that is original about Jesus. If one separates from his words advice that was in the interest of the Roman imperial family, all that you have left are snippets of widely known philosophies, truisms, and concepts that came directly from prior Hebraic literature.
The reason I am now convinced there's no historical Jesus, which seems a real, whoa, to people who are not familiar with the idea, is a combination of things. First of all, there's no evidence for an historical man which stands up to proper scrutiny. Secondly, is the story of Jesus is full of these motifs which come from the pagan mysteries. And the third reason is because in the early Christian movement, there's these two types of Christians, certainly by the 2nd century, which I think of as Gnostics and literalists. What marks out the literalists, who will become the Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church, is that they've got an historical man. What marks out the Gnostics is that they see it allegorically, and their great heresy is that Christ didn't come in the flesh. Now, the winners write history, and the history books have been written by the literalists.
And all of the tradition about the Romans trying to torture and suppress Christians, these traditions are correct. They definitely persecuted the messianic, militaristic Christians.
They persecuted the Negroes.
And they certainly would have frowned on the Gnostic, independent thinking Christians, but the Roman pacifistic, giving to Caesar what is Caesar Christians, that group would have been promoted.
Which makes it perfect for the Roman Empire. And it's a fascist empire. It's got a very simple message: just believe this, you don't have to transform, and you have to go through the authorities, through the bishops, through the state. Ultimately.
You don't have to be tribal. Who cares about your tribe? We're all one, right? Most High doesn't care about his people no more, right? That's what they're pushing on you.
It's the perfect thing for them to pick up, and that's what they do.
That's what they do.
Our scholars agree that the Gospels are complex literary creations, drawing from both pagan and Jewish myths. But Joseph Atwill goes a step further to say that the Flavians wrote passages directly into the Gospels which show that they were the authors.
One of the most famous prophecies that Jesus makes is about the coming of someone he refers to as the Son of Man. Now, many people believe that he's talking about a second coming of himself, and many people believe that this is going to occur some point in the future. Well, the fact is, this coming of Jesus has already occurred. Jesus makes very specific prophecies as to what will happen when the Son of Man makes his visitation. He refers to 3 key events. The Galilean towns will be crushed, Jerusalem will be encircled with a wall, and the temple will be razed, leaving not one stone atop another. He also states exactly when this individual will come. He says that the Son of Man will appear before the generation that is alive and listening to Jesus' words passes away. Now, to Jews of this era, a generation is 40 years. And so the only individual that could possibly be the Son of Man that Jesus predicts is Titus Flavius. Titus Flavius did destroy the Galilean towns. He did encircle Jerusalem with a wall, and he razed the temple and left not one stone atop another. And he did this within 40 years.
This is how they're writing a story and selling it to you, and you're picking it up, putting a Hebrew name on it, and claiming this shit. Hook, line, sinker.
Josephus recorded that no matter how Titus tortured the Jews, they refused to call him Lord or God. So to circumvent this stubbornness, the Flavians wrote the Gospels, in which a Son of Man was predicted to come in the future. Titus fulfilled these prophecies and became the Son of Man. So you end up worshiping Titus without knowing it.
To further support his thesis that the Flavians originated Christianity, Joseph Atwill points to the Roman Catholic Church's earliest saints, known as the Christian Flavians.
The Flavian family is connected to early Christianity in a number of unusual ways. So many members of the family were recorded as having been among the first Roman Catholic saints. These include Flavia Domitilla, who is either Titus's sister or his niece, And there is an inscription honoring Flavia for donating the land that became the first Christian catacomb. And Flavia Domitilla was the first Christian saint. Her son...
So this shit is brand new. Their saints are just popping up, man. And they're writing about them and putting them into their New Test and giving it to you in 1611. When the majority of your originals happened between 900 and 1600, right? AD, 1611 comes a New Test.
Clement is recorded as having been the first Roman Catholic Pope after the Apostle Simon. In addition, there were two members of the Flavian household staff, Neros and Achelous. Both of them had churches named after them in the very earliest Christian dioceses in Rome. There was a Christian theologian whose name was Titus Flavius Clemens, Clement of Alexandria. And he's the one who actually described the first Christian symbols. And he said they were the anchor, the boat, the fish, the olive branch, the star. And oddly, these are the very symbols that the Flavian Caesars used on their coins. The final connecting point between the Flavian family and Christianity is that in the 4th century, Flavius Constantine made Christianity the state religion of Rome.
Hijack City.
The military achievements of Caesars were important to all Romans. So certainly, the Flavian Christians, the group that the Roman Catholic Church states were the first saints of the religion, would have known the identity of the Son of Man that Jesus predicted, who would crush Galilee, encircle Jerusalem with a wall, and raise the temple, was Titus Flavius.
So it seems if a person knows how to uncover them, there are actually many clues pointing to the Flavian origin of Christianity. And perhaps the most intriguing one that Joseph Atwill uncovered is a secret code the Flavians used in their documents, which enabled him to make his startling discovery.
So the Romans had the Jews' scripture locked up inside their imperial court, and they studied it. And what they discovered was that there was a unique literary code hidden in the text.
This hidden code, which was common in Jewish scripture, was used by the Flavian literary team to place passages into the Gospels that had to be deciphered to be understood. This hidden
So they hijacked the code, which is why you went to sleep. It is a spell, and you're getting a foundation out of something. You're reading it, and you're feeling something because there's encoded hijack. Because they're hijacking your original. They're doing a duplicate of your code, putting it in, and then what?
literary technique is known as typology.
Typology.
Typology is used throughout the ancient Hebraic literature. And it's a genre that is really no longer understood or used today. But simply put, typology is using events from the past to provide form and context for subsequent ones.
What we're talking about is
duplicates.
Stereotypic. In other words, there's an idealized prototype which shows certain characteristics or performs in certain ways.
For instance, one of the things they do is they take an old story and they retell it in a new form.
Duplicates.
And they superimpose contemporary history upon old stories.
Duplicates.
And they create these multi-layered texts.
Duplicates.
In Hebraic typology, texts were designed to be read in comparison to one another, or intertextually. And in doing so, a meaning that would not be visible in the surface narration would become apparent to someone who understood the typologic connection between the stories. Hebraic typology connects prophets. Events from the life of one prophet are placed into the life of a subsequent prophet. And this shows that there is a divine pattern established by God connecting his prophets to one another.
The Gospels actually show how we can decipher for ourselves this hidden code or typology that was used to create the Jesus story.
Uh-oh, we're talking Mosach, the founder, the foundational legend.
At the very beginning of the Gospels, there's a primer of this typology. What the author of Matthew has done is take events from the Old Testament and place them into the life of Jesus.
Duplicates.
These events occur in the same sequence in the story of Jesus as they occur in the Old Testament.
Duplicates.
Numerous Bible scholars had already identified the following parallels.
Both stories have a patriarch named Joseph who travels from Israel to Egypt. A ruler who massacres innocent boys. A divine character who states that all the men are dead who sought your life. And then a return from Egypt to Israel. This is followed by events which have passing through water. In the Old Testament, the Israelites pass through the Red Sea. In Matthew, Jesus is given a baptism in which he passes through water. We then travel into the wilderness. The Israelites are in the wilderness for 40 years. Jesus goes into the wilderness for 40 days. Finally, we have the three temptations. In the Old Testament, we have the temptation by bread, the statement, do not tempt God, and the commandment to worship only God. These appear again in Matthew, where Jesus is tempted by bread, tells the devil, do not tempt God, and instructs him to worship only God.
Duplicates.
Therefore, when you compare the life of Jesus with the life of Moses, you see a linkage that shows that the character in the Gospels was divinely connected to the character in the Old Testament.
Bang.
The life of the first Savior of Israel, Moses, foresaw the life of Jesus, who's now claiming to be the next Savior of Israel.
But the next Savior actually went to, see how they skipped over Joshua. I mean, how do you skip over Joshua, right? I mean, now therefore take you 12 men out of the tribes of Israel. Joshua had 12 men too. Out of every tribe of man, Joshua had out of each tribe, had a wall of protection from each tribe. 12 men, 12 disciples. A disciple is a follower, someone who follows in the footsteps or the path of what? The law. So these 12 men were following the law, and they all came from every tribe. Now you have Jesus just picking random motherfuckers, right? He's just picking them up. Hey, man, let's go fish for some men. Let's be fishermen of men. And as you tie that to the Titus story, what they were doing was literally throwing spears and killing Hebrews. That's what Titus and the Flaviuses were doing when they rode up on you. But who really did it? And who's the real Titus? Who's the real Rome? Are we just talking the Columbus invasion and the Papal Bull 1452? Because you remember that the originals were found in a time frame 900 to 1600. And what's the original invasion that happened to you? What's the original invasion? We're not talking a duplicate, we're talking original. A couple more minutes.
To understand the rest of the Jesus story, his adult ministry, we simply need to know that the same system of parallel names, locations, and concepts occurring in the same sequence was used to connect Jesus in the Gospels to Titus in the works of Josephus.
Duplicates,
Our
phantoms.
scholars explain this gospel typology in the following 3 examples.
Here we go.
Jesus comes to the Sea of Galilee at the beginning of his ministry. He gathers his disciples to him and he says, "Do not be afraid. Follow me and become fishers of men." In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus actually says catchers of men. Titus comes to the same location, to the Sea of Galilee. He gathers his troops, his disciples, together and he says, "Don't be afraid." And then he leads them. They follow him and they attack a group of Jewish rebels.
Hebrews.
They sink the Jews' boats. The Jews attempt to swim to safety, and the Romans use their spears to catch them. They become fishers of men.
Literally.
The match isn't exact, but we should never expect it to be exact. It's simply a type which is repeated across the whole of the New Testament.
Typography. Repeated. We're talking repeated, what? The picture that emerges from this, what are you getting, my family? What's emerging from all this water that's flowing through Drop Nation, as discovered by the scientist and his followers, is that practically all, not some, but practically everything regarding their story and this story, your story, which is attributed to dates earlier than 900 AD, consist of duplicates, phantoms, the illusion. You're in an illusion. You're under a spell. Thoth really does have you in a spell. Not a fake spell where you just know that you're speaking English and you know this spell of spelling and spelling of this English and this forked tongue, this duplicate forked tongue is fucking you up. And you know it. But you have cognitive dissonance. You're not really caring. It's like, whatever, man. But you're actually in a spell. You're actually in an illusion. You're actually in an illusion. Not like you're literally in Alice in Wonderland. You're literally being spelled on right now. You don't see shit because you're in a spell. The only way to break it is to return to the Creator. You look up. Hawa. I have returned to you. Fill me with my mother. Fill me with wisdom. With wisdom, Hawa, we can put it back together again. Because we know that all the bullshit they're giving us, especially before 900, consists of duplicates. But the originals, my family, the originals, those that they call Negro, are found in the time frame 900 to 1600, what they're calling AD. And remember we were digging on this, we'll be right back in this Ibn al-Arabi, because we're still talking duplicates, because did the real Muhammad pop up at 1200, not this 500 shit. We're just talking 900 to 1600, right? We're just talking 900 to 1600. So when did the real Muhammad pop up? And is it got anything to do, we're just surfing away, with this Arabi? And love to drop nation, man, because you're dropping this on me, and I'm just, you know what I'm saying, digging on it with you, man. And we all digging on the library. We all digging on it, man. And yeah, we're digging in that Piso drop, man. And let's go ahead and make a dismount with it. Let's get a little bit more about the true authorship. All this is in the library. We're just talking about the Great Secret. The Pisos and the Great Secret, the New Testament, the Church, and Christianity were all creations of the Calpurnius Piso, pronounced Peso family. These are pesos. Now you got the pesos in Mexico and Mexico, Mosac, Mexica, Mosac. Now you're dealing with pesos, right? Pesos in Mexico, right? Are you connecting Mexica with Mosac with Cappadocia? They don't expect you to. Wow. But Jesus and everyone involved with them were created, that is, fictional characters. They're duplicates. What Joshua? Every time you got to come all the way back, man, and you got to choose your Joshua, and you better choose up, because they're giving you duplicates, and you better choose up, man. The true authorship of the New Testament. Let's get a few minutes of this. The Arius Piso, or the Arius Calpurnius Piso. This Piso delivered or deliberately provoked the Jewish or Hebrew revolt in 66. We did our own revolting. We kicked the Spaniards literally out of here, and they came back later, but they got booted out. We did revolt many of times, right? Read about the Gola Wars. Read about the Gola Wars. Now, what they're calling 66, so he could destroy the Temple of Jerusalem, for the Jews were unwilling to accept his father's story, and thereby became pacified by it. So for the Jews were unwilling to accept his father's story, and they became pacified by it, as it was intended. So they started being pacified by the duplicate story, not the story of the original. However, his 12th legion was caught by the zealots in the pass of Beth Horon and almost lost. Nero's reaction was to exile him instead to Pannonia to command the legion there, and to send Licinius Mucianus to serve in Syria and Vespasian in Judea to put down the Jewish revolt. Then in 68, Nero was assassinated by his own slave, Epaphroditus, who, unknown to his master, was young Piso's lackey. Galba became emperor. So some Negro slaughtered this guy, all right? Galba became emperor and named Piso's cousin Licinius Piso as his intended successor, but Galba in turn was soon overthrown by Otho, and Otho was then overthrown by Vitellius, at which point Piso and his friends began to flock together against the latter. The Pisos and Vespasian and Mucianus and Tiberius Alexander, Philo's nephew, all joined ranks behind Vespasian to seek to overthrow Vitellius. Arius Calpurnius Piso was still commanding the 7th Legion in Pannonia, Austria-Hungary, and Vespasian sent him, now appearing in Tacitus, with the name Marcus Antonius Primus. Man, sound like what's that Transformer, Optimus Prime? South across the Alps to overthrow Vitellius. Meanwhile, the main body of Vespasian's legions marched overland under Musanius from the east towards Rome. Piso succeeded in defeating Vitellius' army and secured Rome for Vespasian. Mucianus arrived and promptly sent him to Judea to help Titus at the siege of Jerusalem. He did so, and in 70 they assaulted the city, then the temple, burned it, slaughtered many thousands, sent many more thousands to slavery, perpetual slavery. What has this got to do with the Papal Bull doing Diversas 1452? And which one is the duplicate? And which one is the original Negro? And did your hijack just happen now? And did they just flip it, and push it back 333 years? Well, hold up. 333 years, what?
Statuary documents and things like that.
He thinks most of the things that we think of as historical events really did happen, but the question is when and where, and maybe, of course, how many times. And he thinks, well, it didn't happen 10 times, it only happened once, and most of that stuff happened after 900. Yep.
It didn't happen 10 times, only happened once, man. So what's the original? What's the OG? What are we digging on in real time? What's the real spill? So then, Arius Calpurnius Piso wrote in sequence the following. The Gospel of Matthew. So this was the first creation by Piso or Flavius. Gospel of Matthew. Present Gospel of Mark. Gospel of Luke, with help of Pliny the Younger. They created these dots, what they're calling 8590, which, might be actually lining up to, the 11th and 12th century, right? We're talking about the Babylonian exilarchs and the captivity happening in that time. And we're going to get back to this Khan situation and see how this Genghis Khan really played in the Kalelu situation that happened in so-called 700 AD. Now, in the gospel story, he inserted himself by playing the role not only of Jesus. All right, so this Flavius is not only playing the role of Jesus, but of all the Josephs as well. He particularly enjoyed assuming the identity of Joseph, wishing to create a Jewish hero, a savior in fictional form. He and his father before him felt the identity of a second Joseph secretly, but very aptly fit them, for their name Piso had the same 4 letters rearranged as the 4 Hebrew letters Yud, Vav, Samech, Ve. Wow. Whoa. This hijack is real, which in that language spelled the name of Joseph. Thus they saw themselves as the new Joseph. Duplicates! That is why so much of the story of Joseph in Egypt is secretly redone and inserted into the gospel story of Jesus. Now you see the side by side, the original and the duplicate, man. Is it play? You know what I'm saying? We could lead you to the water, man. If you go back, you know what I'm saying, want to be in that spell, you're making a conscious decision at this point because you are conscious of what's going on. You're conscious of your invasion. You're conscious of the duplicate, the hijack, the chronology, adding 1,054 years to a timeline to fit in a false Messiah, a duplicate, and take you away from Mosach, the founder, from your Joshua here who had 12 disciples. Now this Jewish Joseph, this Hebrew Joseph had 12 brothers, and this Joseph, Jesus, so they're calling him Joseph, Jesus, or Joshua. Is it Joseph or Joshua? All right. 12 disciples. Spices with the Magi. The young disciple flees without his cloak when Jesus is arrested. This Joseph has spices of the camels. This Joseph flees without his cloak from Potiphar's wife. He was sold for 20 pieces of silver. This Jesus is sold for 30 pieces of silver. The brother of Judah suggests the sale. Judas sells Jesus. Background was Egypt, bondage and slaying of the firstborn. Background was flight to Egypt to avoid Herod's slaying of the male children, firstborn. Miriam is sister of Moses, whose story is sequel to that of Joseph. Miriam is Jesus's mother. The Jesus figure which Piso creates is a composite, a duplicate. He inserts redrawn elements from Joseph in Egypt and other Jews of the Bible, elements from Essenic writings, syncretism, man. You know what I'm saying? Syncretism, that's what I'm trying to say. Syncretism, man. They just put it all together, just linking all this shit randomly, right? We're putting the gumbo together. Now they say, oh, it's one big gumbo. It's a universal church. Christianity's one syncretinized linking of all this stuff. Paganism, this, that. These stories, nothing but duplicates. You're the OG. You're the OG, Negro. You're the original man. Don't get it twisted. Get out the twist. Get out the spell. The Jesus figure which Piso creates is a duplicate, a composite. He inserts redrawn elements from Joseph in Egypt and other Jews, Hebrews of the Bible, elements from Essenic writings, and characteristics of various pagan gods. Piso plagiarized the Hebrew scriptures. Piso plagiarized the Hebrew scriptures. Especially he loved and borrowed freely from the prophet Isaiah, whose 44th chapter was most helpful. Piso's idea to make Jesus a god to whom to bow, worship, and pray came from the Isaiah 44:17, and the idea, I kind of skipped something. But something about prophecies in the Gospel of John and in the writings of the church fathers, the prophecies fit Jesus for the same reason Cinderella's slippers fit her feet. The Jesus story was deliberately written in such a way that it would fulfill the prophecy, man. And we're gonna pick it up right here, man. Love to y'all, man. This is just part 3. You know what I'm saying? I love surfing the wave because it takes us in all these great directions, man. And we got a couple minutes, man. Yeah, we got a couple minutes. We left off on this last time, man. Let's see what this, you know what I'm saying? Let's see what we getting out of this, man. We know we got to dodge a hijack, but let's see what she's tying together between this Jesus, Lucifer, Allah, Beelzebub, Baal, Yahweh, What does the Yah gotta do with Jesus and Lucifer? What does the Yah gotta do with Jesus and Lucifer? What's it gotta do with Zeus and the Black Bull? What's it gotta do? Who's being hijacked? Let's go. All right, let's get it from here. Let go.
People in my family have seen it. My daughter saw it with red eyes when she was little. And always has the glowing red eyes. And I never told her that story in my family or anything like that. I never told her scary stories like that. So, and then, so we'll just say, for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to say Jesus. But let's just get it straight that Jesus is yay Zeus. Yay Zeus. Okay?
Or Yah Zeus. Let's go.
I just want you to know that. Jesus is you, Zeus. Yea is also eternal, the eternal one, but in biblical terms, when you're reading the Bible a lot, yea means you. Yea, you know, yea, never have. So actually, you are Jesus. You are going to be like Zeus. You will be God, man, human. Hu means God, human, God, man. Okay? So, but just so you know, actually, we'll even break it down. Even
Hu is Hawa man.
More than that. Because they'd be like, Jesus is the translation for Jeshua. Jeshua is a translation of Yeshua, and Yeshua from Isu. So, okay, the name actually goes like this.
Whoa.
Jeshua, Ishu. Or Ashaya.
Wow. Man.
Hamashiach. So Ashia. And so this just changed. Oops. Sorry. It just changed over time. Or it can be Aishaya. It depends on how you pronounce it or whatever. But they're phonetic, so you have to speak them. You can't just look at it with your eyes. You have to actually say them out loud before you go, oh, okay, I see Jeshua is Yishu, and then the Muslims call him, I don't know how they spell it, Isu? I'm not sure how they spell it, but the Muslims call him Isu.
Isu.
You can't be a Muslim without, this is probably how they spell it, you can't be a Muslim without believing in Christ, Jesus Christ. So,
all the same.
Beelzebub, let's talk about one more time, Beelzebub. Also, Baal is the storm god. Telling us once again, Zeus, the lightning angel Jehovah, Zeus,
Wow.
Jehovah, and also the serpent. There's more than one kind of reptilian. There's more than one kind of serpent. The serpent.
It's more than one kind.
So, basically, their churches are telling you that Lucifer is the devil, and that Lucifer is the serpent, and she is not. Let me just give you a for instance that churches are doing. It's very tricky. I mean, these people, you have to understand that the people that have infiltrated churches, they started a long time ago, and they have just remember that the serpent was the most subtle of the garden, the most subtle. So basically, what churches do is they get you to accept bindings, curses, all kinds of things that you don't understand. So when you do that, when someone says, I bind Lucifer and his legion of angels in your life, what do you think happens? Well, you accept it. Yes, Jesus, in the name of Jesus. You accept it, right? Because you want protection, and you've been told that Lucifer is the devil. You've been told that Lucifer is Baal. Masons worship Baal. That's why they do corn oil in the Bible. God says, they gave thanks to Baal. They did not know that it was me that gave them the corn and the oil. Okay? So, what they'll do is you accept all these bindings and curses about Lucifer and the